And if you could, as you know, we like for people to share where they're dialing in from. So if you can go into the chat and just indicate what city or country you're joining us from today, whether it's breakfast time or ready for bed, let us know. We usually span the globe with these events. So let's see, we're getting, Mexico, Hong Kong, New York. So Hong Kong, you're up late. Appreciate it. Maybe we'll get some West Coast. There we go. Portland, Oregon. Someone's having breakfast out there. So yeah, really great to see where everyone's joining us from. Let's just give everyone a minute or so, and then we're going to introduce our panelists and get rolling. Again, this is the Clear Admit MBA Essay Insight webinar series, the second of 3 events that we're doing. We have 5 amazing business schools joining us today, admissions representatives from each school, to talk about their essay questions and hopefully to share some insights that will help you as you're kind of working on your applications and aiming for either round 1 or round 2 deadlines, depending on which school we're talking about here. So again, thanks to everyone for sharing their location in the chat, just so we have a sense as to where people are joining us from today. But let's get rolling. I guess I don't see why we shouldn't. We've got a whole bunch of people who've already joined. So I'm Graham. I'm the co-founder of Clear Admit, and I'm going to moderate today's session. It's always a pleasure to be doing this. Love to see everyone who kind of jumps on these sessions with us. But enough about me. Let's talk about our panelists. So I want to just introduce each of our panelists. So first up, we've got Douglas Alford, who's the Director of Master's Admissions at Carnegie Mellon University's Tepper School of Business. Welcome, Douglas.
Thank you so much. Excited to be here.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. Next up, I wanted to introduce Kate Murphy, who's an Associate Director of Admissions at Columbia Business School. Hey, Kate.
Thanks, Graham. Nice to see everybody.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. We also are going to hear today from Ann Kilby, who is an Assistant Dean for MBA Admissions and Director of Operations at Georgetown University's McDonough School of Business. Welcome, Ann.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
It's a pleasure. We're also going to hear from Patrick Olson, who is the Senior MBA Recruitment and Admissions Officer at the University of Texas at Austin's McCombs School of Business. Hey, Patrick.
Hi there. Thanks for having us.
It's great to have you. And then last but not least, we have Nicole Wilhite, and she is the Assistant Director of Full-Time MBA Admissions and Student Recruitment at UNC's Kenan-Flagler School of Business. Welcome, Nicole.
Thanks, Graham. Excited to be here.
Yeah, we're happy to have you. So next up in the really first part of this session is going to be a series of kind of roundtable questions that I wanted to get everyone's take on. But just for those of you who are joining us, I wanted to lay a couple of ground rules and give you a sense of the structure for today. So we're going to start with some roundtable questions, as I said, and then we're going to hear quite a bit from each individual program here about their essay questions. At the end of the overall session, though, each of these schools is going to break off into an individual Zoom. So for those of you who've been with us in the past, whether it was last week or earlier in the summer, you know the drill, but we'll send you links so that you can join each of these schools in their individual breakout rooms and ask them questions. As a result of that, we don't really take questions during the main part of the session. So thanks everyone for just for refraining from posting lots of questions. So let's dive in though. And I want to start with Douglas. I wanted to know just kind of how things work at Tepper. Like, when do you read the essays in an application, when you pick up an app to read? And what do you enjoy about reading the essays?
Yeah, happy to answer. First, let me say this. I really enjoy reading essays. I enjoy it so much that I actually save it to the very end. For me, the essay is more of the application in general. That's more of the main course. And I look at the essay as the dessert. It's probably the part that I'm most excited to get to because often I find it to be the most interesting and the most informative piece of the application.
Excellent. Yeah, I appreciate that. And I guess, it's really fascinating because we've been doing these for a little while now and everyone has their own method. And it is interesting to save them as the dessert, that you're really looking forward to savoring. So let's hear, though, from Kate at Columbia. What about you? When do you read the essays and what do you like about reading them?
Yeah, I'm sure you will hear all of us say many times throughout this session that we love reading the essays because it's a chance for us to get to know who you are and what drives you and what you're passionate about beyond just the data points that are scores and GPAs and years of work experience, which are important. But for me, I like to kind of get a snapshot of those things by looking at the resume first, and then I move on to the essays second to learn a little bit more about who you are, which is really important to us at CBS.
So does that mean that you're looking at like the recommendations after? Is that sort of the last thing you're looking at?
Yes, I read
Okay.
essays before recommendation letters.
Okay. All right. Great. Good to know. Anne, how about you? How's it done at Georgetown? And I guess one thing I should have been asking you all is like, does everyone do it differently, or is that, is it regimented? Like everyone on the team has to do it the same way, or does everyone get their own kind of, so Anne, why don't you walk us through how it works at McDonough?
Yeah, I'm happy to. So we read in the order of the application layout. So we're right alongside there with you and what you've submitted. I do personally save our video essay till the end. It's like my icing on the cake to have the metaphor that Douglas said. And the reason why I do that, and I've encouraged other readers to consider it, is because the video essay truly humanizes the application. They put a personality, a presence to their application file. And sometimes I feel like biases can creep in after I see the person interacting. So I'd rather gather all my data points, have my objective review, and then see the person to incorporate that within the consideration. So read as you flow, and then video essay for last for funsies.
Got it. Okay. So yeah, and thanks for following the dessert analogy, keeping it alive here. The other thing I was thinking about is that, from the candidate standpoint, I think a lot of candidates work on their essays first, or that's like one of the things that they start, kind of working on early on, and then they revisit over and over again. And sometimes they do the data forms or the application at the end. And so I just want to underline the fact that when you're submitting your file, like I think it's a really good idea to make sure you devote, the right amount of attention to the data forms. I don't think you want to rush them at the last minute, especially because it sounds like in many instances, that's kind of the first thing that people are going to see. So making sure that's all consistent is important. Let's turn to Patrick. How does it work? Now, I know you guys have a cover letter and not an essay, but when are you looking at that cover letter in this process?
Yeah, we transitioned this cycle to this cover letter model, and we see this as the introduction to your application. This is our way of first getting to know you. So we ask the students to introduce themselves in this cover letter, talk to us about why you're considering an MBA, why you're considering an MBA right now, and why you're considering an MBA at Texas McCombs, and how we fit into your plan and your goal. So we are the appetizer. That I guess if we're sticking with that analogy, it helps us get ready to get us in the mindset of why you see yourself here and how you would fit into our community. So it's the first thing our team will look at. And I've also kind of framed in the sense that when our dean stops by and wants to know, pops their head in the room and says, who are we talking about? That would probably be the first thing we would go to. Like, this is a quick summary. This is how the person summarized themselves. Here's their cover letter. So it's an introduction to the applicant.
Okay, excellent. Yeah, so now we've got the whole food analogy rolling along here, but I do think it is interesting. We'll talk more because I know that you have a video component as well, like Georgetown does, a little bit different, but there's a video piece here. So we'll hear more about that when we get into some of the more specific questions a little later here. I want to turn to Nicole and ask you how you do it. When do you read the essays and what do you like about reading them?
Yeah, Graham. So I guess I'm different than everyone here. I like to read. So our first essay has to do about goals and kind of where you want to be heading with your MBA. And so I will read that essay first, and then I go look at your resume just to make sure that, kind of the path that you're on, that what you've been doing up to this point. And then I read. So I kind of go back and forth, but everyone on our team does it completely different. I also read the essays multiple times. So yeah, I think everyone just has their own technique, it sounds like. But now you're just making me hungry, talking about all the different appetizers and desserts and things like that. But yeah, I love reading the essays.
And I will say that, we've had these conversations with a number of, your peers at other schools, and it really does vary quite a bit. So you're not the only one who goes back and reads rereads essays. A lot of people do that too. So, and I think one other thing, just to assure everyone that's tuning in, that seems to be common is that, these files get multiple reads. So even if someone's sitting down going through your essays, there's someone else on the team that's going to read them too. So if you're not, you're putting lots of time into writing these essays, I know, and there are usually multiple eyes on this stuff at any given school, and there's several, kind of rounds of reading and things. So let's move on though and get into some of the real specifics here. And we're going to start again with Douglas. I wanted to talk a little bit about, have you talk to us a little bit about Tepper's essays. And we have everything up on slides for all of you as we go through here. But one of the things I thought would be really interesting is if you could just sort of take us through one of your questions here, whether it's the essay or the video, and just, let us know, like, how did your team come up with this question? What are you sort of looking for when you review it? And then any advice to someone who's kind of sitting down to work on it?
Yeah, no, absolutely happy to do so. I would say, as you all may imagine, like the essay question is something that we take very seriously. So we're going to meet every year to discuss the essay question from the previous cycle. And we'll begin by reviewing the previous prompt. We're going to really spend a lot of time discussing it, not only the text, but the effectiveness of it. I'm trying to determine if we really garnered the type of responses that we felt could really help inform our admissions decisions. And after we've already had a chance to go through a full year of connecting with the students after they've been admitted and joined our class, if those responses actually matched up with the students as well, to again further decide the effectiveness of it. For us, we think this is really important. We really want to get a chance to get to know the students that are entering our program. But we also want to make sure that we're providing an essay as an opportunity for them to better advocate for themselves through the application process. One of the questions I like to ask students when I get a chance to meet with them, if the application process, including the essays, gave them an opportunity to tell us everything they need to do so. And that's really what we're hoping to do with the essay question as well, is to give them opportunity to shed a little bit more light into who they are as an individual and what they can bring into our community.
Got it. So I want to ask you kind of a follow-on question here. And I'm kind of, I had a lot of different questions I could ask, but this one is just about the first essay, right? And it's, I was reading the question and thinking about the fact that there may be instances where someone has, helped to create an inclusive environment, maybe like, say, when they were creating a club at university, or on a relatively like small scale, but where they were in the driver's seat and had a very kind of large, sort of leadership role in doing that, versus, in some instances, someone might be being a kind of a smaller cog in a bigger system in the workplace, right? Where maybe they're doing little things to help, or there's something they've done, but they're not the driving force. So is there like a preference for, something that's a little bit older, but, maybe not quite as, not as big scale as, working in a large company or something. So yeah, how do you advise someone to think about this stuff? Because it's, they're probably going through different options as they think about the essay.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Now, I imagine there are several students within the same situation on the call today. And I think it's important that they understand that we know it's important for us to meet our students where they're at. Not everyone is going to have the same level of life experience, professional experience, academic experience, come from different cultural backgrounds. All those things will contribute to what you decide to participate in at the undergraduate level, as well as at your current position as well. So in an ideal scenario, you've taken a part of a large scale event that's really an illicit change, and you can share about that experience. But if that's not you, we prefer for you to be honest and just speak by answering the essay prompt exactly and sharing with us what you can. Again, we read so many applications, so we do have a good understanding of the different type of opportunities and situations in which students have been in. And like I said, when I mentioned that we want to meet you where you're at, we want to hear about your experience and what you're hoping to do in the future as well.
Okay. And before I let you go, I did want to ask one other question while we're on the essay stuff. I think it must be in the data forms, but there's somewhere, I think, in the application where you ask about a plan B. There's like a career, like what's your kind of career plan? But then there's sort of like a plan B question. Or do you want to shed any light on that? Like where does that come from? Is that sort of the career services office saying, hey, it'd be good to know like what's someone's backup plan if they don't get their first choice job, or like where does that come from? And any advice on how to think about that?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So for us, we work hand in hand with different campus partners throughout the year. And, the MCC office, that's actually one of them. Uh, for us, we understand that it's not just us, for all business schools, it's important that we live up to our promises. So we know that, different students are going to be pursuing an MBA because they're looking for a career pivot, they're looking for career advancement, they're looking for some form of growth, likely including a substantial salary bump. So because of that, whatever we can do to ensure that we're doing our part to get a more full picture of our students and their MBA goals and how we can help support them on their journey. That's why we want to that's exactly why we're asking that specific question.
Okay. Yeah, that makes good sense. I mean, I think it's, obviously there's so many business school students who go in with one idea and then graduate doing something different. And so I think it's actually a really helpful exercise to sort of brainstorm a couple of potential paths that one might take. So I think it's a great thing that you're asking that.
Yeah, we're not holding them to it, but we definitely want to ask.
Right. Yeah, that's important to note too. It's not like that when you graduate, you're told, oh no, you can't take that job. You didn't write about it in your essay. So let's turn to Kate now. I want to talk a little bit, Kate, about the Columbia Business School essay questions. And, if you could just take us through, whichever of your, we have 2 slides for you because I think we had, there's some extra essays, right? So take us through one of them. Tell us like sort of where it came from and any advice you have on it.
Yeah, of course. So I think the one that I'd like to highlight is my favorite essay, which isn't actually on this slide, but I'm happy to answer any questions you have about these as well. Essay 3. So
okay,
we are asking in essay 3 why you think Columbia is a good fit for you. There's a little kind of preamble to this essay that says, like, we think Columbia is a really special place. We have things that are unique to our program, such as the Executives and Residents program. We are really excited to talk with prospective students about our clusters and learning team structure. We really try to foster a collaborative learning environment at CBS. So with that in mind, we ask all of our applicants to tell us kind of what excites them about the vibrant and dynamic community at CBS and how they see themselves fitting in and contributing and making an impact on the school. So this essay for me is the most fun to read, I think. We really like to get a sense of how much, how deep you've looked into our resources and our clubs and organizations and our faculty members, and if there are any electives that you're excited to take. Everybody kind of speaks with different current students and attends different events and gathers different pieces of information about the program in their journey of researching the program. And it's fun for us to kind of see that come to life on paper in the 3rd essay. So, advice here is to take some time to get to know us and share how you see yourself fitting into the CBS landscape.
Great advice. I want to turn and ask you a question about, I guess it was on the first slide. So if we can go back a slide. I want to ask, there's this interesting nuance to the first essay, not the short answer, but the essay number 1, in which, you talk about career goals over the next 3 to 5 years. So that's, a lot of schools ask that kind of thing. And then you have this little line that says, what is your long-term dream job? And I wondered, like, how much leeway do people have with this? Because, on the one hand, you could say, oh, I want to do consulting for over the next 3 to 5 years. And then I'd love in the long term to be, to go to a client company and have a C-suite job or something, right? But a dream job to me could be even something different, right? It could be something even bolder, or like people can dream, so I'm just wondering, like, what are you guys looking for there? And is it like a bad move to be kind of way out there and think about something really, like the true dream,
Yeah, it's a great question. I think the example you gave is one that aligns with a lot of the people's approach to the essay, which is, I see myself here in 3 to 5 years, and then the natural next step is to pursue a C-suite level role or something like that. But I will say that there's no right answer here, and it's really up to you how general or specific you want to be. Sometimes we have people that just want to make a career pivot into a different industry, and it's kind of a broader, my dream job is to make, impact in the social enterprise space or the healthcare space, or it could be a really specific role at a really specific company. And again, there's no right answer. I think what we're really looking to glean here is, does it make sense? What are you passionate about? When you tell us what your dream is, we learn a lot about you, professionally and personally, I think. So essentially, is the MBA the right degree to get you to your short-term goal? And does that align with where you see yourself down the line? And dream big and be authentic. Definitely tell us.
Yeah, no, that's excellent. Good to know. And I think, yeah, it gives people a lot of leeway, which is great. I really like that aspect of this question. Like, I think it's a lot of fun to think big. All right. So thanks for shedding light on the essays. Let's turn now to Anne. Anne, do you want to take us through one of your essay questions? And again, because you guys have kind of a few different options, we have actually a couple of slides, I think, here. So just steer us wherever you want to go, or you could just talk about this broadly, however you want to do it.
Great. Thank you, Graham. You're on the perfect slide, so we'll stay here. For our written essay, we ask you to choose one prompt across 3 prompts we provide you with. The reason we do that, we've had this model for some time now, though the prompts themselves have changed. First, it's a symbol that there is no one size fits all, one type of candidate who does well at Georgetown McDonough. And then secondly, we want you to be strategic in your essay selection and choose the topic where you feel like you can best showcase yourself. I encourage candidates generally, and then I'll speak specifically about essay 1, generally work backwards. Think about what are the defining moments of your life, what are key experiences, what are your core values, skills, what really makes you you, in terms of which ones you think are most relevant to convey to the MBA admissions committee. And then from there, once you've outlined that list, see which of these essay prompts will allow you strategically to incorporate those examples, because we are looking for tangible examples to help demonstrate the qualities you're using to describe yourself. So that's my general advice. For essay option 1, and again, that's one of the 3 written prompts that we allow, you'll notice across the 3, they're all mission oriented, all values oriented, because that really aligns well with our Jesuit history and tradition. Being the oldest Jesuit institution in the United States, we're very values driven. This particular essay I love because it really embraces our values around inclusivity and diversity. We know at Georgetown McDonough, we thrive in diversity. You see that with the 48 countries represented at our MBA cohorts, diversity of educational background and industry background, et cetera, et cetera. There are so many ways to define and demonstrate diversity and how that will contribute to our community. And we gave you several examples there: educational, familial, cultural, et cetera, et cetera. So this is really your opportunity to showcase your unique self around any of these topic areas, so that we get a better sense of what you're bringing to the community uniquely and what we have to look forward to.
Got it. So I want to, so thanks for shedding light. I want to actually, let's show those other 2 questions just so that folks can see those as well, just so they have a sense of what the options are. And while people are looking at that, I want to ask you a totally different question. I know that you have, there's like a video essay that you talked about at the beginning when we were talking about reading the file and how you saved that. That was the icing on the on the dessert. Tell me, like, how does that process work? And what advice, like, what are you looking for in that? Because I know you do interviews as well, right? So where does that video piece fit in? It lives in this land that's kind of between essay and interview, right? But just tell us a little more about why you have that piece and any advice for candidates when they sit down to do that part.
Yeah, of course. So one of the benefits of the interview is it humanizes your application. However, our process at Georgetown McDonough is we read applications before we consider interview invitations. So you have to be deemed eligible for admit consideration on paper before you're advanced in the process. So having a video essay ensures some humanity within the paper review. So the video essay allows you to be 1 minute on camera The prompt is tell us 5 to 10 facts about yourself, not on your resume, and why you chose those facts to share. And again, be strategic. You know, we're going to get a lot of people who say, I love cooking, which is wonderful, but say, I love cooking because it's a way to showcase my culture. I love cooking because it brings people around a table and a shared experience. You know, it's a snippet, but it tells us about what you value and why. So lean into the opportunity to make your application more well-rounded in terms of a human opportunity here. Again, it follows our values of cura personalis, care of the whole person. So allow us to see you in that way. And then the last tip I would give is have someone who knows you really well watch the video and challenge you to say, does this seem authentic, or am I trying to fit into some kind of perceived box of MBA candidate? Because what we're looking for is the former. We really want to see you. So have someone check you on that.
Yeah, that's great. Great advice. I do, you know, I think it sounds like a fun exercise. I mean, I know when people are applying to business school, they probably are thinking, oh no, it's just another thing I have to do, but it does sound fun to come up with these, you know, kind of facts that aren't on the resume that they can share. And I think it sounds like a really useful tool for you all too, on the other side of it. I do want to say that I appreciate you continuing the food analogies with cooking. I don't know if that was on purpose, but that's excellent. So one other thing that you just made me think of that I wanted to mention is that last week, when we were doing this session, there was one of your peers at another school talked about this idea of giving an essay that you wrote to a friend and asking them to tell you what the question was you were answering. So to give it to a friend without the question on it. So another, you know, like you're saying, share the video, see if it's authentic. I thought that was another piece of great advice that folks gave last week. So moving right along, and thanks for all that. Patrick, let's go to you. I wanted to just, take us through. I know you do have an optional essay, and you have a cover letter. So pick one, tell us what you're looking for, and the kind of origin story of it, et cetera.
Yeah, you know, like my colleagues, we all evaluate our essays, our essay questions, and adapt to the educational times. And so we did some reflecting on our essay topic, and then, you know, asked ourselves, what are we looking for here? And we found that we were really just looking to get, again, like everyone said, get to know the person. So we found that having less restrictions on a specific topic allowed the student to have more creativity. It allowed the student to be able to express what they want to share and how they wanted to share that. So the cover letter is very, very open-ended and intentionally open-ended. Like I stated in the beginning, it is the introduction to your application. It's the first thing our team is going to see. It is going to allow us to get in the right mindset for why you want to be a student at Texas McCombs, why you want to get your MBA, why you want to do it right now. So, you know, similar sentiment of, you know, being vulnerable, being honest, sharing your story is all helpful to us.
So I think this is really an interesting exercise. And I will say, it sort of mirrors like the job application process to have a cover letter, right? And, you know, and there's a resume that they're submitting to, I presume, as part of their application. And so I guess it's getting folks in order here in terms of, you know, thinking about what they're going to be doing when they get to business school and start to look at employment opportunities. I did want to ask you, now I know that there is a video assessment that's part of your application process. But it happens after submission, right? So they submit the main application, and then I guess they have a period of time, 7 days, right, to complete this sort of video assessment, which my understanding is like 4 to 5 questions. Here it says 4, so maybe it's just 4. And they have a certain amount of time, 90 seconds to answer each prompt. I just wondered if you'd, you know, pull back the veil a little bit on this. Like what should people expect here? And, you know, in terms of the logistics of it, they have 90 seconds. Is it like one take and done? Can they, you know, delete and try again? Or is it literally like, boom, 4 questions, answer them each, and then you're out?
Yeah, happy to. And this is, you know, another way for us to be able to get to know the applicant, for them to add some depth, some color, some commentary, and to share stories. And what's also nice about this is we provide this platform and this assessment to every single person who applies to Texas McCombs. It's something we're very proud of, that every person who applies to us goes through the same process, the same journey, and has the same opportunity to share their story and share why they would be a good fit. And so every student will complete a video assessment. There are 5 total questions, 4 of which are evaluated. So the first one is really just an introduction. So it's tell us about yourself. You're on the first day of class, introduce yourself. That's not evaluated, so that's why it's not maybe listed as the 4 questions. But then there are 4 questions based on our core competencies that we're looking for, based on motivation, based on empathy, based on collaboration. And one of those questions will also be regarding your goals for the program, similar to, I think, Carnegie Mellon. So they have 30 seconds. The question is asked by myself or one of our colleagues. It's pre-recorded. They have 30 seconds to think of their response, and then the camera clicks on, and they have 90 seconds to respond. There is no redoing. So there are practice questions. So encourage students to practice many times, get familiar with what 30 seconds feels like, get familiar with what 90 seconds feels like. And they're all what if questions. So there's no right or wrong answers here. It's just a chance for the students to share their story, share their perspective, share their experience, share their background, share what they're going to add to our community. So a lot of the same things my colleagues are looking for in essays, we're looking for in these video assessments.
Okay, that's really helpful. And I do recall, you all used to have an essay question that was kind of about imagine yourself at graduation, think about what you will have done here, what you will have gotten involved in. And I feel like some of the things you just talked about speak a bit to that. And so, yeah, it sounds like getting to know your community and thinking about how you might take most advantage of being a student at McCombs is probably a smart move as you prepare for these questions. But thanks for shedding some light on that, because I know it's probably, because it comes right after they submit, it's sort of, people are kind of maybe wondering, like, what is this going to be, so thanks for doing that. Nicole, you've been super patient as we've gone alphabetically here. When we do the lightning round questions at the end, we'll start with you in some cases. So
It's okay.
we'll get you.
Nope.
But yeah, take us through, one of your essays. We've got, 2 slides here for you as well, because there's, I think, another question that we have on another slide. So wherever you want to steer us and yeah, offer up your thoughts.
Let's do the third one on the next slide. There you go. So I love this essay. It's the one I actually read second, because it's normally the most completely different than the typical, business jargon and written perfectly. And it's the one that really people use to reflect exactly who they are. And they either use it to address concerns they have about maybe a little blip of some grades or something like that. But it's also a way that people can tell me more about themselves, like some fun facts, and really makes them come off the page while I'm reading hundreds and hundreds of essays. And so I really enjoy, and I encourage people to do the third essay, even though it is optional, just because it's such a great opportunity to get more face time in front of the admissions committee. I don't know why people don't always do it, and it is a shorter one. We don't expect it to be long, only 200 words, but it's just a great little peek into who you are before the interview. And so it's one of my favorite ones to read. Just people tend to be a little bit less formal in it and really just get to kind of have some fun with it. So that's the one that, and we use it as an option to, people always get nervous after interviews or throughout their application. There's things that don't quite fit on your resume. There's things that weren't asked in an interview. And so this is just kind of that chance to brag about yourself or get that information in there, especially if you're a person who doesn't like talking about yourself very much at interviews. And I know it can be daunting to some. We encourage you to use this platform as a way to express anything you would like to say, because we'll read that before we interview. And so, yeah, this is just our way of giving you an opportunity to tell us anything you want us to know. So I definitely encourage it. And it's a little bit different than the other typical essays.
Yeah, I love it. I think it's and also I hope everyone was paying close attention that, Nicole has encouraged you to write this. I mean, I think it's, it's probably a really great signal to send, because it it just shows the school that you're really thinking about their community and what you're going to bring into that environment. I wanted to ask you a question. I think it's I can't remember if it's in the first essay or I think it's on the first slide, or if not, maybe it's in the data forms, but it's it's the first essay, question number 1. Yeah. So in this question, you're asking about immediate career goals and, how someone will benefit from the MBA, et cetera. And you also have a kind of a plan B, which we talked about earlier. I think it was with Tepper. But I noticed there isn't like a question about a long-term goal, which people are often used to answering in these sort of career goals essays. I mean, I think we saw that with Columbia. It's sort of like short-term, long-term, or dream, kind of job. So what's the rationale there? Like, is it just you guys are more focused on what do you want to do in the, when you graduate, and we'll leave it there and not get into sort of the longer term? Or should someone offer up that information in this essay anyway?
We have a lot of people offer it up. I think the idea is that you come to business school with this kind of open blank canvas, and it's great to have a plan, and it's great to have an idea of what you want to do, but we also love people who can pivot, who are flexible, who might meet a professor, might meet a classmate, and might do some self-reflection and some growing, and they might, like you said, completely change what they want to do. And so we like for you to come in with an open mind, that maybe your trajectory, your course completely changes while you're in business school, because you have 2 years to kind of make those mistakes and figure out what you want to do. And so I think for us, we just want you to just focus on, do you have the tools? Do you have the skill set to get you where you want to go? But grow and evolve and see where you end up. And, it's funny because people always say, what happens if I don't do what I said I was going to do on my essay? I'm like, we will kick you out. Absolutely not. We want you to do what you want to do. So obviously, you're only going to do one MBA, I hope. And so you want to use those 2 years the best of your ability to just explore as much as you possibly can, and take a couple different classes just to make sure that this is exactly what you want to do. So I think we just focus more on, gosh, 2 years, it flies by, but just what do you want to do right after it, and then be willing to pivot and persevere if things like a world pandemic happens and things like that. How you can get through that. So yeah,
that makes sense.
Mhm.
So I want to move now into the kind of final section of the session today. And just to remind everyone who's joined us today that, each of these, our panelists are going to jump off into an individual Zoom, and we'll get you links so you can join them. But before we do that, we're going to have this little lightning round, and Nicole will stay with you, as I alluded to earlier.
Sure.
We're going to start with this one. I just want to know, what's like one essay no that you'd like to share with our audience? Something that you just don't recommend people do, or, classic mistakes you've seen.
Going way over the word count would be my first thing, or going way under. So trying to stay in that nice area, and not talking just to fill space either. So
Right.
I guess that's really confusing, but hopefully that makes sense.
No, I think that's great. And actually, there was a question in the chat earlier. Someone was like wondering, they'd come way short of a word count, wondering if they needed to like go up to the number. And, generally I would say, when you all have a word count, there's kind of a reason for it, and people should hover right around it, ideally.
Don't fluff it. Don't give boring.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh,
I
yeah.
think
No.
there's something to say. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So let's go to you, Patrick. How about you? What's one, well, we could call it a cover letter no if you want, since you don't have an essay this time around. But yeah, just kind of a piece of advice on this front.
Yeah, this is an easy answer that I'm sure I'm going to steal from one of my peers here, but putting another school's name, or even like indirectly, we'll talk about this. I bleed this certain color, we bleed burnt orange, and they might say like indirectly, I bleed the wrong color. So things like that. So making reference to other schools is definitely a no.
Yeah, good advice. We also, talking about optional essays earlier, somebody mentioned a week ago, I think it was, about how don't take an essay you wrote for another school and like shoehorn it into a school's optional essay just because you thought it was a really great essay you'd written. So be mindful of that. And how about you? Any kind of essay no-nos that you want to share?
Yeah, well, I'm glad I'm going after Patrick, because I think this is a good segue. So yes, don't mention the wrong school, but a big no-no is not mentioning the school at all. So I think for all the essay prompts, tie it back to the school. So make sure you do that.
Okay, great advice. Kate, how about you? Any no-nos you want to share?
Yeah, totally agree with my peers on the webinar here, but just being as articulate and concise as you can. Sometimes more isn't more. It's really the quality of your response and the quantity. So word count is important, but be sure to answer the question. And I love what you said before, Graham. We often give that advice, like share your essays with someone without the prompts who doesn't know what the questions are, and let them tell you what they think the question is. And if they don't know, then you're not answering it as clearly and as concisely as you could.
Yeah. Excellent. Douglas, I feel for you because I know this is hard to go last on whenever there's like an advice thing, but do you have anything you were thinking of about no-nos here?
Actually, yes, this has already been mentioned. I'm going to mention it a third time, and that is to actually answer the prompt. If we're asking the question, we're asking for a very specific reason, and we definitely understand that there are instances in which there's information that you want to make sure that the admissions committee receives, but the information we want in this particular essay question is the one in which we're asking. So please make sure you answer the prompt directly.
All right, excellent advice. Let's stay with you, Douglas, for our next lightning round question, which is bust one myth about the MBA admissions process. I mean, we see on clearadmit.com, there are always people, posting, entries to Livewire, and they're saying, oh, I think they're calling people for interviews by the first letter of their middle name. People come up with these crazy ways to think about it. So anything you want to just, shed some light on and help clear things up a bit.
Yeah, sure. I'll be happy to tackle one. I think one thing that often comes up regarding an MBA application is, it's mainly about some type of academic requirement or disqualifier. We get it a lot with standardized test scores. If a student doesn't have a specific score, that there's no chance of being. I'm sure I can speak for my colleagues when I say the holistic admissions process is legit. We definitely care more about the entire individual than we do a collection of numbers, whether that's a GPA, standardized test score, or a year's work experience. We're looking at the application holistically.
Okay. Yeah. Great advice, and probably comforting to a lot of our attendees as well. Kate, let's go back to you. Bust one myth about the MBA admissions process.
Yeah, I often meet folks on the road who have questions about, and this came up earlier on the call too, how many people on our team read applications, and are we really reading them front to back? And the answer is 100% yes. We read applications front to back. We read the essays multiple times, and you can rest assured that it will be read by multiple folks on our team at least too. So the time you take does not go unnoticed.
Yeah, that's really helpful. And I think, I used to read at a MBA program too when I was in admissions, and yeah, I mean, the file, any file would be read 2 or 3 times over the course of the process. So it's getting its due. And that's not true, I think, in a lot of other graduate program types. Like, I don't know that that's true at law school or medical school. I think it's quite different. So I really believe in the holistic process. When schools are talking about that in the MBA space here, they mean it. It really is a holistic process. Anne, how about you? One myth that you would like to bust?
Yeah. At Georgetown McDonough, we are looking to admit you. That is our goal. You have to prove otherwise. And we find that when we do have one-on-one coaching calls with candidates, I know we offer this service for reapplicants. We often find that candidates are harsher on themselves, more critical on themselves than we are. So just know, in general, if you're working in admissions, you have generally a positive outlook because we believe in the service that we offer in higher education. And so cut yourself some slack, boost your confidence.
Yeah. I love that approach. I mean, the idea that you're, picking up a file and looking for a way to admit the person rather than you're a gatekeeper and you're trying to keep as many people out as possible or something. Right. So that's excellent. Patrick, how about you? Any myths you want to bust?
Yeah. For me, it's you don't have to meet with an admissions staff person to be admitted. I think we can all appreciate good engagement and good opportunities to connect. But I do understand where the myth comes from. It is important to connect with someone from the program. But it doesn't have to be me or anyone on this call or admissions per se, but it is important to connect with someone really for your benefit to make sure it's the right program for you and you understand the culture and the community. So connecting with a student, connecting with an alumni, connecting with staff are all ways to do it, but it doesn't have to be an admissions representative.
Yeah, good point. And I think I'm just thinking about when candidates meet you all on the road. It reminds me of the essay thing we were just talking about, where if you only have 500 words, to write, and you don't need, you don't have 700, like, don't fill it with fluff. And so my advice would be, if you're trying to meet with someone just to get FaceTime, you don't actually have any questions to ask about the program, but you think that somehow by shaking their hand and talking with them and filling the space, that's going to like get you in, that could be a mistake too. So anyway, yeah. So be careful about all those points of contact. Nicole, how about you? One myth that you want to bust?
I would say that during the interview, we're going to try to grill you and get you to, kind of rattle you or throw you off. And the interview really is, at least, I'm sure for everyone, but really just want to get to know you as a person. So don't be somebody that you're not, because we want to admit you for you. And so just be your true authentic self. And it's really more of a conversation, at least for us. It's very conversational. So we're not going to try to put you in the hot seat.
Great advice too. Yeah. I feel like, maybe 20 or 30 years ago, there were some schools, making the interview a bit more kind of, stress interview type scenario. And I mean, that just has been gone for a long time, but the myth persists, right? So thanks for shedding light. Let's stay with you, Nicole, for our very last lightning round question, which is actually in honor of, we had a couple of essay questions today that we talked about where, there was kind of this idea of a plan B. And so I thought it'd be fun to ask each of you, what other job could you see yourself doing if you weren't working in MBA admissions? So yeah, what do you think, Nicole?
Oh man, you're good. Gosh, another job I would do, I love working in recruitment. I'd probably go to the corporate recruitment side and still just help, graduates, but getting into the companies, if I wasn't, because I just love working with MBA students. So that'd be fun.
Okay. Patrick, what else could you see yourself doing?
Yeah, completely out of this realm, but I have the privilege of serving on the board of a nonprofit, and I find that very rewarding work. And so I'd say if it wasn't this in a different life or another world, maybe in the future, helping manage a nonprofit with that aligns with my outside passions would be something I can see myself doing.
Okay, excellent. Anne, how about you?
Yeah, I would probably do something similar to Nicole, talent acquisition. So working within HR for a corporate. I love getting to know people, guiding them, fitting them. So something similar to that.
Okay, makes sense. Kate?
I think if I wasn't working in higher education, I might have gone down the path of becoming a teacher with children. I love kids, so perhaps an elementary school teacher, or something along those lines with kids.
Excellent. Douglas?
Yes, I too absolutely love working in admissions. I just really enjoy helping people, so it's hard to imagine myself doing anything outside of that. However, my other academic interest is higher education policy, to be specific. So I do expect and plan to pursue a doctorate in education, and after that, I would love to work on the faculty side.
Oh, wow. Interesting. I appreciate you guys humoring me on that. I know the candidates are always interested in, it's like turning the mirror a little bit, right? You guys ask them all these essay questions, so we're kind of throwing it back your way. So I appreciate everyone doing that. So what we're going to do now is I want to give our panelists a moment to slip off into their Zoom. So I do want to sincerely thank you, Douglas, Kate, and Nicole, Patrick. Really appreciate you guys making time. We'll send you off into your individual breakouts. Everyone else, stay here with me. We'll get you the links to join them, but we just want to give our panelists a minute to get set up. So thanks again to all of you for joining us. So stay with me. Our panelists are going to get set up, and we'll send you links. There are going to be two ways that you get the links. The first is you'll get an email with links to each one of our panelists' Zoom breakout rooms. The other thing we'll do is we'll share them in the chat here. One thing I should also remind you is that you can't be in more than one room at once. I mean, that's the way that Zoom's set up is, you can go from one, and then when you're done getting a question answered, you could then log into another. But because of that, make sure you copy and paste, or, save the email you get so that you have access to all the different rooms as you go through here. While we're waiting for our panelists to get set up, I did want to talk with you just really briefly about something you can do at clearadmit.com, which is get a free profile review. Some of you probably are already aware of this, but if you go on ApplyWire, which is a tool on our website, you can basically just submit kind of the schools you're thinking about, when you want to go to business school, your goals, some of your numbers, and any notes you want. And then members of our community will kind of weigh in and tell you what we think, whether you're barking up the right tree, or you have schools on your list that, maybe shouldn't be there, or schools that you should have on the list that aren't. So that kind of thing. And what's really cool is that each week we pick out a few of these ApplyWire entries, and we actually cover them on the ClearAdmit MBA Admissions podcast. There's a special podcast we air, we call it Wiretaps, every Monday. And you can tune in. I think some of you probably listen to the show, but every Monday we air a new episode and we break down real candidacies on the show. And it's actually a really great, almost like a case method way of learning about how MBA admissions works. So please, if you have a moment, post to ApplyWire, you'll get some feedback from our team. And then who knows, you might end up on the podcast where we talk at length about your candidacy. And this is anonymous, right? You don't need to put your name or anything. So there's nothing, it's not like schools are listening or are going to know who you are anyway. So share this stuff and we'll get you feedback. I think that's about it. I think we've given our panelists enough time to sort of run off and get set up into their Zoom rooms. I did want to thank all of you for taking part today. I do encourage you to go hang out with the admissions reps who are in their Zoom rooms, because they're going to be there for the next 30 minutes at least, and are happy to answer all of your kind of program specific questions or specific application related questions. So please head off and do that. Thanks so much for joining us. Next week, we're going to do this again. We're sitting down with Wharton, Yale, UVA Darden, and University of Michigan Ross next week. So please come back, same time, same place. I'll be here hosting again. Looking forward to seeing many of you. And just thanks for all your time today. Always appreciate everyone joining us for these.